Okay, this is the agenda for today. We've had a number of submissions. Uh, Jim turned me on to what became the Hoosier Hero story. And then we'll try to end up, although we don't really have a quorum, to talk about what we want to do in the future. So Pepper sent me this. This is a fascinating map. So uh, we think Homo sapiens are not just Homo sapiens. We're knowing all the hominid species started in Africa and they spread out contemporaneously throughout the world. So they all lived at the same time. It wasn't a progression as uh, some diagrams lead us to believe. And they stepped out of Africa onto the Saudi peninsula, uh, and some went to Australia and continued on across to Eurasia, and eventually crossing over from Siberia to Alaska and then all the way down to the finish at the tip of southern South America. So this is a really fun map. Thank you, Pepper.
And John, it's important to remember the climate was very different 200,000 years ago, even 10,000 years ago in the small ice age. So when you say go through Saudi Arabia, it was probably more, jungle marshland than it was desert in those times.
Oh,
David,
yeah.
the one thing I noticed there is there's a study that shows that I believe that the Australian Aborigines are more closely related to the uh, that was one of the early migrations, and I'm not exactly sure that that's showing it here, but
Oh yeah, that's the yellow over to the right, Bruce.
yeah,
Chart is on the bottom, and then 55 to 45 to 55 million, yeah, thousand years ago, that was that one.
right. But I think that from the genealogy of the times, there's the Aborigines are more related to the Africans, the early Africans, than that. So I could be incorrect in that, but I somehow remember reading that someplace.
All right, we'll have to check on that one.
Right.
And then, as I said earlier, there were other hominid species. So Florentius is in here somewhere. Um, near Indonesia, in fact, I think, Bruce. Um, Welcome, Carol. And so off they went, and a fascinating story. I love this map. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
this is going to lead us to another map. Can you believe that they can put tags on monarch butterflies and track them? And this is the best map that I found. There's another more detailed one that appeared in the East Bay Times, but the monarchs we get here head up. It looks like into the Great Basin in the summer. And then in the fall, return. There was another map that appeared in the East Bay Times. This map, which is more everything all at once. What fun! And here is the main original, the home, if you will, here in central Mexico. So fascinating stuff. I saw this butterfly as I was walking in San Diego, in the neighborhood where we still own my mother's house, which one of our sons lives in, and we spent Thanksgiving with him. And on this walk, I found this is obviously in northern San Diego, very solid. Latino community there. And when I went to high school down there, it was Sharks versus Jets. There was a lot of violence between Latino gangs and white gangs. This was at the end of the 1950s. But it's interesting that we get this in solidarity, and this is a very rich community where my mother's home is now. And here's an expression of solidarity, because no doubt a lot of the service people are Latino, but obviously after all this time, 65 years on, citizens with Latino heritage are everywhere down there. Hoosier Heroes, Jim tipped me off, sending me the New York Times setup for this. We didn't know the ending, but maybe you read that the Republicans under Trump's encouragement was going to take away these two blue congressional districts from the Democrats. And how was he going to do that? He was going to carve up Indianapolis, my hometown, into four and attach each of the quarters to a surrounding congressional district, which would have taken away Indianapolis's congressional vote. The same thing was going to happen up in Gary, Indiana. This is obviously next to Chicago, and also very industrial and urban. By the way, Chief Justice John Roberts is from Gary, Indiana. Another Hoosier. They're all over the place. So what happened with this idea that was going to give the Republicans 100% of congressional districts in Indiana? Well, there was some resistance in the Senate of Indiana. And leading up to the vote, there was a lot of Sturm und Drang and threats. And one senator got so harassed when he expressed opposition that he said, okay, I'm not going to run again. Another couple of representatives also said, hey, this is too much for me. I quit. Sort of like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so another senator, though, a woman, stood tall and said, you know what, I'm not going to cave. If this had succeeded, there would have been one place where you could stand in Indianapolis that would have been quite near 5 congressional districts, but it didn't happen. Unfortunately, Indianapolis, which is the most vibrant and diverse city in Indiana, my hometown, is still got their district because 21 senators. So there's 40 Republican senators, 10 Democrat senators. So of the 40 Republican senators, 21, the majority of the majority, voted against Trump and rejected the cockamamie redistricting plan. So will Trump primary all 21? We'll see. But the last filing date for the midterms is December 19th. I think this is the average date's earlier, but I think the very last deadline for running in 2026 is December 19th. And so Trump won't be able to primary anybody after that. So expect a surge of courage. Um, Another positive thing about California, here we go. UC Berkeley leads the production of silicon innovators. Stanford is in second. So hooray for California. Um, and Pepper sent me this. This shows the firearm mortality. And you see California does quite well, um, uh, leading the nation and firearm mortality. With Oakland so nearby, it doesn't feel that way. But you take the state of a whole as a whole, and New York does pretty good. So good on the Democrats. Um, and then not quite enough, though, to protect Rob Reiner, who I guess he and his wife were murdered by his son. At least that's the headline today. Who knows? But this remarkable run of movies within 8 years is quite amazing. And Ike and I are going to watch one of these tonight's in memory. Of course, it's not just Rob Reiner. His father is Carl Reiner, who, along with Mel Brooks, did a lot of things, including appearing on the Sid Caesar shows. But they also created the 2,000-year-old man, a great comedy bit way before Saturday Night Live. International Australia, man. And this hit home to me because my college roommate was Jewish. And we visited him in Adelaide a couple of times, Australia. And so he's got to be feeling this terrible tragedy. When we were there, he took us to the former synagogue in Adelaide, which had been converted into a nightclub. And he had a very wry sense of humor, has a very wry sense of humor about this development. He himself is not at all religious, but we took him to the Cathedral of Light in Oakland, which is quite an amazing piece of architecture. And here he was, a secular Jew, and he was very much moved. We actually sat for a part of a service. Oakland being a very diverse community, they have services for Vietnamese, for Filipinos in different languages, and we sat through half of the service in Tagalog or Talagog or however you say that. Anyway, so that's my Stanford roommate. I thought this was interesting for the doctors in our group. I guess we don't think it's any surprise that the United States leads the world in burnout of primary care doctors. The complexity of our system, prior authorization, billing, computer access, the intensity of all that, we know from personal experience. If healthcare is contributing, and who knows, maybe it's lifestyle more than anything else, but more people are living to be beyond 100. And here's an interesting graphic on that, projecting beyond 2041 when I'll turn 100. Um, but I think this guy speaks for all of us that we're not interested in living to 100 if we have to do it in bed. Yeah. Um, there was an interesting exchange that Ramsey shared with me. It was in the realm of polemics. So, what's polemics? A strongly critical attack or a controversial opinion. And we had in our study group Ramsey's monthly study group that did history for retired people in the evening at a Lutheran church in Lafayette. We had a fellow there who was part of our group who was very conservative, and he's very interested in polemics to kind of get under the skin of us liberals. And so I think he started this ball rolling. If we're so interested in socialism, why don't we start giving 70% of our paycheck to the government? And Ramsey's polemic in return was, for conservatives who hate socialism, why don't you lead by example by refusing to let the town maintain your street, trash pickup, public parks, waterways, Medicare, Social Security, and tell the fire department to stay away when your house is on fire. I thought that was a good polemical exchange worth sharing. It's not the bicentennial. This doesn't roll off the tongue quite as interestingly. It's a semi-quincentennial. So the quincentennial would be the 500th year, and half of that is 250. So it's the semi-quincentennial. I don't think it's going to catch on somehow. Holiday Hope Ramsey set this out that there is some evidence that Americans still prefer ideals of universal equality over the more nationalistic and ethnic vision that people like J.D. Vance seem to be propagating, and that young people are the most resistant to this retrograde nationalism. But old people are falling for it. And Ramsey finished off his remark, darn those old people. I don't know who he was talking about. So there's a fine line between nationalism and a national narrative. And this leads us to the proposed project of looking at American nations from a regional point of view. And the author of that book gives this quote: "A society without a credible story is in trouble." And who said something like that? You've maybe seen on one of Ramsey's slides this book by William McNeill, The Rise of the West. And Eichel recognized this cover. This is the book I carried around the world with us on our big year of escape after we spent a couple of years on the reservation. And I devoured it. And at the very same time, Ramsey was doing the same thing. So this book is one thing that binds us together. And I think he even mentioned this book last week. But this Colin Woodard mentions William McNeill and is quoting him here that a society without a credible national story is going to be in deep trouble. You've got to believe in some myths to hold your society together. A coherent public action is almost impossible without shared myths. And he uses the word myths advisedly, which is difficult. And it kind of borders on Plato's noble lie, that you almost have to have something that maybe is not literally true to hold a group together, shared myths. So this is Colin Woodard quoting that. And if that's where we're going to wind up at the end of studying his book, I think it'll be a very interesting place, and we could have that argument. So let's take a closer look at Colin Woodard's books. He wrote this book in 2011. Carol and Iko will remember that. And he looked at this is the cover of the original book. He carved up the country into 11 discrete cultures. Let's look at a newer map, which is a little bit more appealing. And I'll just kind of go through this chain of consciousness. Number one, the earliest, is El Norte. And we forget that Santa Fe, New Mexico, was settled at least 20 years before Virginia. So this is number one. And then number two is the Virginia, the Tidewater. I think there's another quasi nation up here which is French. It's not on this map, but here's New France down here because the French were expelled from Canada, went down the Mississippi to New Orleans. So Cajun culture is embedded here. And then the Caribbean, which was the most profitable of the British colonies. The second sons of Caribbean plantations went and settled in the Carolinas. And if you look at the South Carolina flag, there's a palm tree which is somehow a symbol of second sons. So our Deep South was settled, and this was the most brutal slave culture anywhere. I think probably a tie with Brazil. The Spanish Caribbean was around that time. But then you had other flows of immigration, Quakers, Pennsylvania, the Dutch to New Netherlands, which is New York. But the Pilgrims to Yankee became Yankeedom into Boston and New England. So you have these different traditions from different roots. So Quakers are different than pilgrims for sure. And then lastly is Great Appalachia, Northern Ireland in particular, my people. Samuel Sampson was born in Belfast. Samuel Sampson McNeill, on my mother's side, was born in Belfast in 1767 and came to America in the 1780s. So have I hit Far West? This is Manifest Destiny. We studied American history up to Manifest Destiny, and the Far West was a mishmash of all these other groupings, but came to be dominated by big money, and that's interesting. And when we study Far West, we'll get the details of that. And then much later, think Gold Rush, the left coast, as Woodard describes it, was settled, which he says goes all the way from San Diego to Juneau, Alaska. So a lot of these areas get cut off by Canada, but there's another map which extends into Canada because culture respects no political boundaries at all. So the Far West goes up into the provinces of Canada and is very similarly politically. So there's not much political difference. So in that sense, Trump is right. There is no cultural boundary between there's a political boundary, sure, but no cultural boundary between America and Canada. So, that's a quick thumbnail. And then First Nation is one of the kind of afterthoughts that bring up the number from 9 to 11. And they're really big in Alaska. We saw that. And there are Athabascan tribes up in Alaska that are intelligible to Navajos in Arizona who also speak Athabascan. So the Athabascans took off around the 1500s and made it down into the American Southwest at about the same time that the Spanish conquistadors were coming up. And the poor Pueblo peoples, they got hit by both sides from north and south, caught in a vice, but that's how you can explain how an Athabascan Alaskan native can be able to speak to a Navajo. So I think I've got everything. Greater Polynesia, of course, which is its own story. There's a great book that I have recommended. It's my choice for one of my book clubs, which is The Wide, Wide Sea, about the Captain James Cook and his exploration of the Pacific. And he encounters Greater Polynesia, which is a civilization all of its own accord. Anybody want to know where Greater Polynesia started? Anybody have any idea? It started in Taiwan a couple of millennia ago. That's when humans got into boats and with the restlessness of humans started exploring, and their exploration took them all the way down to New Zealand, New Zealand, also the Easter Islands, which some say is the center of Polynesian culture. Others say Tahiti is, but they eventually get all the way up to Hawaii. All right, so I think I've exhausted this topic. Any questions, comments? Um, this black dot represents Ramsey's childhood home in Catonsville, Maryland. And he's proud that he sits at the intersection of three of Woodard's American Nations. And he goes on to break down the academic standards of his class, that all the good students were from the Midland heritage, like Quakers, and Germans come in on the tail of this. The weaker students were my people from Appalachia, and the Tidewater were affluent, so they did well economically, being on the ocean as traders, but they were really racist. But so was Greater Appalachia, by the way. I've experienced that, unfortunately. And so he wonders who's going to dominate at his upcoming 65th reunion. He added an afterthought that Texas was very clever to put their capital, Austin, right at another intersection of three, the far west, the Midlands, and Greater Appalachia. So that's Ramsey's input on this. And I hope we'll have more. Ramsey, I happen to remark, Ramsey, we in Indiana thought we were at the crossroads because that was in the 1950s, while I was a teenager. The claim of Indiana was that we were at the crossroads. What did that mean? We were at the center of a population. So there were as many people to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. We were the center of population for a long time. And being Ramsey, researched it and said, well, yeah, that was true from 1890 to maybe 1941, but certainly not by the 1950s. And of course, it's no surprise that the center of population kept moving ever to the west as Americans kept moving ever to the west in manifest destiny. So the thing that renewed our interest in Colin Woodard is a book that just came out. And I discovered it by listening to a podcast, which I'll share. The name of Woodard's new book is Nations Apart. So he uses his analysis and the different backgrounds of these 11 nations to show how the different backgrounds are, in fact, a factor in tearing us apart. There are other factors as well, but it's a problem when you have 11 different histories to pull a group together. We're a nation of migrants, and Woodard's theory it demonstrates that in detail. So his new book, and this is an updated map. He breaks it now, is able to break it down by counties. So he's gotten very granular in his analysis. And reading the introductory chapter, he claims to have an answer of how to bring America back together again. And where does he get his data? Um, so, on the basis of his scholarship, he's gone into academia at Regina University in Rhode Island and created what he calls the Nationhood Lab. And he's quite eloquent on what they're going to do with the grants that they get. Uh, and uh, this they've got a website. If you want to get on there and play around, they've got a lot of graphics and maps. I haven't had a chance to study them yet, but this is the website. So if we do read these books, there at the end of it, we would have the chance to do a deeper, more granular dive where has been able to back up a lot of his theory. So I thought it'd be an ideal thing for us to study. So if we went through book one to get his basic thesis, and book two to see how he can explain why so many people voted for Trump. We can't understand it. And that's kind of what we've been searching for. I think he would supply the answer and as to how many Americans could possibly vote for this guy in book two. And then he promises a prescription for healing, which would be interesting for us to consider. Um, so, that's the end of my introduction. I've got some more stuff we can look at. Europe as a cautionary tale. They've been pulled apart as well, so it's not just America. But I'll take a pause and entertain any comments on Woodard and whether you think it would be a worthy subject of study.
John, just a movie comes to mind, which I think I've mentioned to you, but V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if people have seen that. It's a post-apocalyptic, post-viral apocalyptic British, but if you haven't seen it in the last 5 years or 8 or 10 years even, it came out 20 years ago. It's an amazing look at an authoritarian rule in Britain and how it doesn't go well. And one guy is kind of, Viggo Mortensen plays the hero, anti-hero. But highly recommended. It's a sci-fi, a little bit violent, but it's quite a piece for political satire or commentary.
Uh, Thank you, David. Any other comments? Well, V for Vendetta, and then I would also say one battle after another. Uh, it's the same echo, the same theme, but brought up to date and is in the running to win an Oscar, which I think would be deserved. So if you have,
Amazing movie.
yeah.
I have a bone to pick with one battle after another.
What's that?
Um, well, the interesting thing about One Battle After Another is it's based on a book called Vineland, which is written about these militant groups, the leftist groups in the 70s. So what Paul Thomas Anderson has done is he's taken source material from the 70s and then put it in present day, set the opening in an ICE facility, and essentially put forward a fictional yarn of what modern day extremism looks like, which actually looks nothing like modern day extremism.
Yeah. Well, for those of us who remember the 70s, maybe it's more resonant.
Yeah, but also I think what we see today, like Dad and I, we were talking about a group that got arrested down in Southern California, an extremist group that was plotting bombings on New Year's Eve down in Los Angeles. And they had ostensibly been at a cafe on Saturday, just a couple blocks away from my home. And it's interesting. It's a very online thing, but it's starting to develop into more uh, elaborate actions, it seems.
Um, yeah, the name of the outfit is
Turtle Island Liberation Front.
Turtle Island Liberation Front.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Near Jeremy's home in Los Angeles.
They're demanding a return to the original pre-colonial culture.
Sure. Talk about going back to the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, well actually it's derivative. The Turtle Island Liberation Front is something back that is derivative back in the 60s and 70s. That's what's so interesting is that the fictional one battle after another when you have robberies in order to fund these endeavors, that's not happening today. What
No.
we see more, I think, now are kind of online copycats and cosplay, which is I think very different and not as sophisticated.
Yeah, different weapons. By the way, Bruce, I did fact check. I put it in the chat. 50 to 60,000 years ago was the Aborigines, according to Wikipedia. So that map is fairly accurate.
Yeah, I was trying to look at that as well, and but it could be.
So, Jeremy, you're trying to offer us hope by saying that neither the rebels nor ICE is as sophisticated as they were portrayed in the movie.
Not as sophisticated, but more socially contagious.
So not as deep, but more superficial.
More superficial and more easily digestible in the sense of that all of this proliferates online in this kind of subculture online, but again, very trendy or fleeting as far as people's investment. In other words, the same extremists that were active in 2017 aren't the same ones usually that are active in 2020 or 2025. You have a lot of turnover in these right wing and left wing militant scenes.
So
Lost souls, I'd say.
maybe old people like me, our complaint about the uh, communication culture is that it's too superficial and short attention span. And maybe that's what's going to save us
Yeah,
from a deeper conflict.
I
Well, there's an irony for us. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Welcome, Tom. Any other comments before I go on with a little filler material to round out the hour?
So what happens to them? I mean, it's short attention span, and so they go on to other things, or what?
Well, they don't have any lasting political effect. Back in the 60s and 70s, the weathermen were serious. And
right.
they bombed a lot of things, including ROTC buildings on campuses. Um, uh, and one novel that just kind of opens your eyes to the culture of the radicalism in the 60s is American Pastoral by Philip Roth. And in that book, the protagonist has a daughter who joins the weatherman and participates, and so you get a personal connection through that character. Of course, well, I won't spoil it. Only to say that later on she becomes a Jain. If you know Jainism, the religion that comes out of India as a spinoff from Hinduism and Buddhism, actually, they don't believe you can hurt even an insect. So here's this girl who has been blowing up buildings, refusing to step on an ant. And anyway, that's Philip Roth, who I think's a great writer. Okay, American Pastoral. All right, just to fill out the hour, couple of minutes. What has Europe been going through? Well, they're having as much a problem with the political spinoff of immigration as we are, arguably more and for a longer period of time. And the populist right is gaining ground in a lot of countries in Europe, being rooted on by both Trump, but especially J.D. Vance, who goes over to Europe routinely to throw this into the face of the European establishment. So these are all and they're in power in Italy and threatening very much so in England and France and particularly Germany. The alternative for Deutschland is now the leading vote getter, the pluralistic leader. There is an ironclad agreement so far among German parties never to go into a coalition with the alternative for Deutschland, given the history of Germany. But there you go. And so we see evidence of rioting. We see evidence of sabotage by immigrant groups. And so the Trump administration just floated this national security strategy, which warns that European civilization faces the risk of erasure from migration and changes, but also low birth rates. And if you look at the fertility problem that Europe has, that's real. That's real. And if you aren't replacing your population with native peoples, who's gonna take care of the old people? And in this country, the answer, of course, is immigrants. But because the Anglo-Saxon population in America is like Europe, not replacing their population, and we're only being saved by immigrants who take care of us in our old age, but also do just look around in California, do a lot of the necessary work. If you look at who got COVID, It was necessary workers who couldn't stay at home, and they were disproportionately Latino. Um, so there's all kinds of implications. I won't go into any of this, but we've gone in California through this cycle once before. Pete Wilson uh, uh, put up Proposition 187, which passed, which was going to deny uh, schooling for the children of immigrants and was going to deny health care to immigrants, including prenatal uh, care for pregnant immigrants, undocumented immigrants. And that would have been terrible because you would have had a lot of perinatal disease and unhealthy babies. And when that happened, I happened to know Pete Wilson's wife from Stanford. We were in the same Stanford and Germany class, and I wrote her an angry letter about the refusal of the Wilson administration to allow pregnant women to come for routine prenatal care, which is the most cost-effective innovation in medicine, running a close second with immunizations. So there was that, and that 187 failed, but was thrown out by the courts, and Pete Wilson disappeared and was never heard from again. And Republicans have not occupied a statewide office since then. So a victory of sorts. Tom.
Two things, John. Number one, back to your slide there about the leaders of like England, Germany, France, and Italy. What doesn't compute to me is that the United States administration put out that security document, whatever you call it. But what doesn't compute to me, yeah, that national security strategy document. What doesn't compute to me is that it seems like our current administration is more aligned with England and France and Germany and Italy, their administrations, and yet he's saying these things about civilization face the risk of erasure due to factors like migration, cultural and religious changes, low birth rates. I mean, us, when I said the United States, England, and France, we sort of all have the same things going on, but it's sort of like a statement about the United States too, unless I'm misinterpreting this. And then my
No,
second comment, John, before you sign off today, can you and I just talk offline a little bit?
sure, sure. Uh,
Anyway, back to my comment about England and France and United.
yeah, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance among Americans because, as I said, we're not the dominant population of whites is not reproducing itself, and there's no acknowledgement from the Trump administration that it is immigrants that are keep making our country the best economy in the world, because we do have still, in spite of ICE, probably 11 million undocumented workers. So it doesn't make any sense, Tom, and I can't make sense out of it because it's cognitive dissonance. There is no logic to it.
Hey, John, I'm just going to put a plug in. There's a movie out I just saw called Among Neighbors. It's about Poland and the Jewish situation, which is a little peripheral, and it's not in the big theaters, but it was an amazing story about Poland and Poland's role, both pre and mostly post-war, in continuing to kill the Jews. But it's ultimately a reconciliation movie, a bit about how it was a tricky situation. But it addresses a little bit of the movie has been banned in Poland, and when you talk about countries that are leaning towards the denial of truth, Poland's at the I would put up there.
Yeah, there was another Polish movie about a young Polish girl looking for her roots that touched on the same themes. I'll see if I can find that for you, Pepper.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay, folks. Anybody else? Anything else?
Hey, John, this is Tom. I just want to remind you, I found out a little bit about your history today, so I want to talk with you a little bit about that.
Uh-oh.
No, 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 it's good. It's good.
All right, I know.
Möchtest du mit mir Deutsch sprechen?
Jawohl.
So
As I said,
you mentioned you were in Stanford in Germany.
yeah, with Gail Wilson, Pete Wilson's
What group were you in?
7.
I'm group 30.
Oh, you're kidding. You went
No,
to, yeah, yeah. See, I was in a little town near Stuttgart. You were probably in Berlin.
no, I was in Bodelsbach.
Were you at 30?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I,
now
I,
you and I will talk offline. This may not be fascinating everybody in the group.
yeah, yeah.
How about you, Bruce? Did you go to a campus abroad?
No, because I was an engineer. And
Okay.
so, yeah. And so I went in the Peace Corps then
All
in,
right.
yeah.
Well, well, Bruce, I was an engineer too, but I went to Stuttgart in Bodelsbach in Germany. I'm teasing.
Well, yeah, I was in the slow group.
No,
Where did you
I'm
go?
teasing. I took all my liberal arts classes overseas.
Where did you go, Bruce, in the Peace Corps?
To Borneo
Oh, wow.
and the Sarawak, East Malaysia. And so, yeah, that was a great experience.
A lot of bugs there, though.
Oh, well, yeah, but bugs and you like your warm weather. Well, it was warm and
So,
what it did, what was interesting is my son just recently uh, did some tapes. We went overland from Singapore to Munich by car, and which apparently people were doing back in those days. And so what he was blown away by is he has his mother on tape now, which she's probably, um, you know, he wasn't even born yet, so this is 3 years earlier, and so at any rate, he's just kind of blown away by hearing his mom before she was, pick up your clothes and being the mom kind of thing,
yeah.
and so yeah, that was very interesting.
So, Bruce, I just have to tell you a little quirk of history. Germany produced a lot of engineers. And
Yeah, yeah, they did.
yes, they did. And they also produced a lot of doctors in medicine. And so when I went to Stanford and declared as pre-med, I was told that I had to take German. Uh, that was the rule back in those days. I think it was gone by the time Pepper got into, or Teisel even got into the pre-med pipeline. And why was that? It was because Germany had led the world in medicine beginning in around 1870. You had great scientists like Koch, the Koch postulates. And when we were in Berlin, it was interesting. The first day there, Aiko sprained her ankle. And it was the day they were running a marathon, so there was no way to get a cab because downtown Berlin was closed. So we had to take a rickshaw to the nearest hospital, which turned out to be an ancient hospital, Charité. I don't know why it had a French name, but Charité. And it was old, an old building, and there were placards on the wall that talked about great German doctors like Koch, Koch. Anyway, that's why I wound up taking German because of German science. And somehow the word didn't get out to the engineering department.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. That's how I got to Indonesia and worked there, and because Siemens actually was responsible for doing some of the. I was on a project for Siemens doing a continuous casting machine.
Ah,
I'm going for my show.
okay. Interesting. Okay, so Tom, you and I will stay on.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
rest of you will see you next week.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy
Yeah.
hol.
Happy
Oh,
holidays for sure.
not next week. Not next week. First Tuesday in January.
Okay, that's 3 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good
Thanks,
deal.
John.